There have been school shootings all across this country in recent years. One took place in December of 1992 right here in the Capital Region. Josh Einiger, chief of our Berkshire County newsroom, recently interviewed the student who pulled the trigger and is now serving a life sentence. Josh?
Lydia, that student is still infamous throughout the Berkshires. His name is Wayne Lowe, and in an exclusive prison interview with News Channel 13, he told me what happened to make him snap at a place called Simon's Rock. It's a quiet and tranquil place, a picturesque campus, a school of privilege. Nestled in the Berkshires, Simon's Rock College is a sanctuary for bright and motivated students, a place to finish high school and get a top-notch college education. Wayne Lowe was one of those students.
So I was having a great time in high school. I didn't hate high school or anything, but I just felt I wanted to be on my own.
The Lowe family emigrated from Taiwan to Billings, Montana, when Wayne was just a boy. He grew up in a disciplined home where studying was a top priority. So when the Simon's Rock brochure arrived, it was a perfect fit, or so they thought.
I was, you know, like this, clean-cut kid, you know, dressed fairly normal, if you will. But the other kids were very different, you know. They had different color hair, you know, just exterior-wise, they were quite different. And from the very first day, I knew I was at the wrong place.
By his sophomore year, things had gone from bad to worse. He says he was planning to transfer out, but in December of 1992, Wayne Lowe snapped.
I was on a mission from God to, you know, cleanse, if you will, the sins of Simon's Rock.
He took a cab to this Pittsfield gun shop where for $200 he bought an SKS assault rifle. He ordered ammunition by mail, and on December 14th he took an exam, had dinner, and opened fire.
It was completely random. I was shooting at anything that moved.
First, he killed a professor, Nakanyan Saiz, who'd been driving onto the campus. Saiz was shot in the head and slumped over the steering wheel, crashing his car. When 18-year-old student Galen Gibson heard about the car crash, he ran to help and became Wayne Lowe's next victim.
I didn't feel I did anything wrong. I didn't care about the victims. I didn't care about their feelings. I didn't even think about what a horrible thing I had done.
He murdered my son.
Greg Gibson is Galen's father. He showed us Galen's gravesite in their hometown of Gloucester, Massachusetts, where on that December night, he received the phone call that changed his life.
We'd just gone to bed. The phone rings in the middle of the night. You get up, and the guy on the other end of the line says, there's been a terrible accident. Your son's been murdered. I mean, it's like every bad movie you ever saw.
Wayne, what happened? What got you so angry?
Wearing a shirt saying, "Sick of it all," Lowe surrendered himself to police and was indicted on murder charges. His lawyers argued he was insane. Gibson, who has since written a book about the ordeal, agrees.
When God comes to you and tells you to avenge drug addiction and homosexuality on your college campus, obviously, by my definition, you're crazy.
Are you crazy?
I never thought I was crazy.
The jury convicted him of murder, sentencing him to life without parole.
You get past these fences right here, they'll shoot you.
Wayne Lowe is now 26 and spending the rest of his life in this medium security prison in Norfolk, Massachusetts.
Oh, I absolutely deserve to spend the rest of my life in jail, you know, if not more. I mean, Massachusetts doesn't have the death penalty, but if it did, you know, it wouldn't be too much if they gave me the death penalty for what I did.
Now, as for Greg Gibson, obviously he'll never forget, but can he forgive? We'll tell you about a budding relationship between Gibson and the man who murdered his son. That part of the story tomorrow night, live at 6. Lydia?
Thank you.
Last night we showed you our interview with Wayne Lowe, the student who took a murderous rampage through a small Berkshire County college. Tonight we tell you how the family of one victim coped with their loss. Josh Einiger, chief of our Berkshire County newsroom, joins us now with part 2 of his special report. Josh?
Lydia, in December of 1992, Wayne Lowe went on a shooting spree at Simon's Rock College in Great Barrington. He killed 2 people, injured 4, and traumatized an entire community. Tonight, one victim's father and his search for truth. On a late spring afternoon in the Massachusetts fishing village of Gloucester, Greg Gibson is visiting his son.
It expresses his uniqueness, I think. It's got a little lift to it. It's got a little humor to it. It's got a little difference to it. It embodies the things that he was.
This headstone and some memories are all he has left of Galen, 9 years after the 18-year-old poetry student was gunned down at school, fatally shot by a fellow student named Wayne Lowe. Lowe now spending the rest of his life in this state prison in Norfolk, Massachusetts.
Calling at this time for arraignment, Your Honor, the matter of Commonwealth versus Wayne Lowe.
On December 14, 1992, he took an SKS assault rifle on a random rampage through the Simons Rock campus, injuring 4 and killing 2, including Galen.
He was a very popular kid on campus. Everybody liked him. I never disliked him. I never had any run-ins with him.
He had heard there was an accident down the road, and he was going to go out and offer his help, and Wayne Lowe just happened to be standing there with the gun. It was, as the police described it, an opportunity shooting, meaning simply that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Gibson says he was furious that certain facts were not shared with his family, that no one would help them gather the information they needed to grieve.
I started out trying to gather these facts, and somehow it turned into a book.
He says he learned the school's dean, Walter Rogers, either ignored or bungled some key warning signs, the most chilling of which the package Lowe received the day of the shootings from a company called Classic Arms. Could anything have stopped you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But the dean allowed him to open the box in private. Lowe then hid 200 bullets before anyone saw them. Later that evening, Wayne Lowe opened fire. We made numerous requests for an interview with Simons Rock officials. Instead, they kicked us off the campus.
Get off.
Meantime, Gibson has been moving on.
Dealing with the problem of violence, not solving it, dealing with it.
He speaks to law enforcement groups like this about his experience and the threat of school violence in America. And Wayne Lowe is doing some outreach of his own. He meets with groups of high school students who visit the prison, telling them not to waste their lives and ruin those of others, just like he did almost 9 years ago. Lowe and Gibson have been writing each other, Gibson trying to understand, Lowe trying to explain. They both look forward to the day when they finally meet.
The pain I caused is so immense that if that happened to me, I don't know what I would do. But to see how Mr. Gibson handled it, it just showed me what a great person he is to even want to correspond with me. I want to apologize for what I did. I want to tell him that myself.
I think there's a lot of things we could say, but I think he's at a place now where he needs to grow a little more, where he needs to develop a little more spiritually or have some deeper awareness of himself than he does now. If I see that he's done that, I would love to talk to him. I think we could have a marvelous conversation.
You might call Gibson's outlook admirable. He disagrees.
Maybe we don't really want to think about how vulnerable and how close to death we really are at all times, and what a normal part of life it is.
Now, one more note. Greg Gibson folded his investigation into this book, Gone Boy. If you're interested in finding out more about Gibson's experience or about the book, you can check out his website through a link from our site at WNYT.com. Ed, Lydia.
Josh, Greg Gibson's son was one of 6 people shot that day. Have the families of any of the other 5 victims ever spoken out?
Well, they have spoken out here and there, but they have never contacted Wayne Lowe. Wayne and the other family members and the other victims, those who survived, have never spoken. Wayne Lowe does say, however, that he wants to help them, the family members of those victims, cope with it and try to understand why it happened, just like he's helped Greg Gibson, and he welcomes their letters.
I guess it makes Greg Gibson's passion to speak out about this even more remarkable.
Well, yeah, and even more remarkable is the fact that just literally 2 months after the shooting that claimed Galen, Gibson's other son, Brooks, was in his high school cafeteria having lunch when a fellow student just 10 feet away stood up, picked up a gun, and shot himself in the head. And Brooks was okay, but Gibson is very interesting. He says, you know, if that boy's anger had been turned outward instead of inward, he'd be dealing with 2 dead sons. And so he's even that much more involved in these issues and involved in trying to educate people into what can happen with school violence.
Josh, thank you for sharing his story with us this evening. Ed?